We are getting fascinating insight into the final years of Osama bin Laden through the treasure trove of documents found at his compound in Pakistan after the raid that killed him last May.
Officials have been poring over them, and some will be released in the coming months. But national security analyst Juan Zarate got a detailed briefing as to the contents. He joins us now along with senior correspondent John Miller, who once interviewed bin Laden years ago. Good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
So what surprises you? What's the most important thing you have heard that helps us understand bin Laden and Zawahiri?
Well, I think, Charlie, one of the interesting points that comes out of the documents is clearly the loss of control that bin Laden sees in the movement. The fact that the movement itself is getting out of his control, both in terms of discipline and in terms of what he's able to actually direct. And you see that then reflected in tensions between him and Ayman al-Zawahiri, where they have different views as to what the movement should be doing, where they should be attacking, with bin Laden focused heavily on trying to attack in the United States, with Zawahiri wanting to hit the United States in places where they can, in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. And so to me, the most striking part is a beleaguered movement, a battered movement, and a leader that realizes that he's having to exert control over a movement that he's losing control over quickly.
There is also this. We have not had an attack in 10 years. Part of that is good police work.
That's right.
And how much of it is their inability to mount the kind of mission that bin Laden wanted to?
Well, they came very close. If you look at the British planes plot where they were going to place bombs in liquid containers, the reason we can carry only 3 ounces of liquid today on planes, that was a plot with a dozen airliners that really would have killed up to 2,000 people. That would have been on the level of 9/11, and because of great intelligence work on the part of the British, joined by us and some other partners, that was prevented. But it was certainly viable. It was well in progress, and it could have happened. Or the Zazi case here in New York City, 16 backpacks on crowded subways on a 9/11 anniversary. All of these things were in progress, directed by al-Qaeda, and came close. And if you look at the bin Laden documents that were seized in Abbottabad, his message out to the organization is target America, worry less about Afghanistan and Iraq, and think of planes again, whether that's small planes and student pilots, think of trains, and think of hurting the economy, whether that's blowing up commercial places or attacking oil tankers to drive up gas prices.
You also see here this sensitivity about killing Muslim civilians.
Yeah, it's striking, Charlie, because bin Laden and al-Qaeda itself is very sensitive to their legitimacy, their moral legitimacy, their theological legitimacy. And what comes through in his musings is the fact that they feel beleaguered. They feel like they've been isolated from fellow Muslims, and they see themselves as having to recuperate their image. And that's throughout their documents. Interestingly, Charlie, bin Laden talks about Faisal Shahzad, the Times Square bomber. And what he says is that it was actually illegitimate to use Faisal Shahzad because he was an American citizen who pledged an oath to defend America. And so bin Laden is worried about the rules of engagement, talking about the need to do this with honor and to restore the image of al-Qaeda, which is fascinating. And people need to remember they care about their legitimacy. Until his dying day, he wanted to restore their name and their brand.
When you say he was worried about Faisal Shahzad having pledged his allegiance to the United States, does that mean then that Osama bin Laden did not feel that even if someone had pledged their allegiance to al-Qaeda, that it would ultimately trump anything else? Because that's very telling.
It's very telling. I think his point is that if somebody pledges an oath, they've given their word to defend America. And if that's the case, they're no longer eligible for an operation. Now, this doesn't mesh with what the organization is doing writ large, because we know with Anwar al-Awlaki out of Yemen and other parts of al-Qaeda, they've recruited Westerners and Americans and have wanted to insert them. And so in many ways, there's a disjuncture. But I think it's a reflection of a bin Laden, again, trying to control the movement, the discipline of the movement, with everybody else just trying to find a way to hit the United States.
And the fracture of the movement.
No, go ahead. So the size of al-Qaeda raises two questions. One, they wanted to expand, some differences in strategy there.
That's right. And they were looking at merging with al-Shabaab, the Somali terrorist organization. And there was a split between bin Laden and Zawahiri over that strategy and whether they should do that.
And Charlie, interestingly, bin Laden dies, soon thereafter, last month, the merger actually happened. So you see Zawahiri's view on the merger actually coming to pass. He wanted the merger to happen.
I'd like to get back to the branding issue, because you would think, I'm running a global terrorist organization. Do I really have time to think about this stuff? But a lot of the stuff when bin Laden was stuck in Abbottabad, when you pour through these documents, you're seeing administrative things about whether we should have emirs and deputy emirs, and then he obsesses over the name Al-Qaeda. He says, you know, the U.S. stuck this name on us. It means the base, but our real name used to be the base of jihad or holy war, and you know, we need to get back into that because they have recast us as being a terrorist group as opposed to fighting for Muslims. So he made a list of suggested names. The jihad group, restoration of the caliphate group, monotheism in jihad group, revitalization and restoration of the nation group. And you see from a marketing standpoint, this was not bin Laden.
None of these are really great.
And there are others too, but you see he's trying to sort of recast Al-Qaeda as part of the vanguard of Muslims around the world.
We keep hearing about the treasure trove of information. As they look at it and declassify it, are they suggesting that there's a lot of nuggets there that will be extraordinary in terms of insight into Al-Qaeda?
You know, I think Iran is a key element there.
Well, I think current questions about the relationship between Al-Qaeda and Iran play into this a bit. You see played out in what is revealed at Abbottabad that Al-Qaeda deputies were released from Iran starting in 2009, and questions as to whether or not Al-Qaeda and Iran do have a relationship. That emerges. And I do think, Charlie, that it does reveal insights into sort of the waning moments of a movement and a terrorist group that is really evolving. Yeah. In some ways, a threat that has moved beyond Al-Qaeda itself. And I think that's a very interesting insight from what's come out of the documents.
John Miller, Juan Zarate, nice to have you both here at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.